In the dimming light of a late autumn afternoon, 5 spirited friends embarked on an adventure into the heart of Black Hollow Forest, a place infamous for its eerie legends and inexplicable vanishings. The ancient, sprawling woodland stretched out before them, shrouded in a cloak of fog and mystery that seemed to breathe secrets into the wind. Eva Morgan, still silently tormented by a long-past tragedy, led her friends with a hesitant determination, unaware that each step deeper into the forest was a step toward confronting not only an ancient evil, but also the buried sorrows of her own past. The journey into Black Hollow began with a mirthful air of anticipation and youthful bravado. As laughter and casual banter filled the space between them, the underlying tension of the forgotten trail at the forest's edge loomed large. Unmarked on any map, this narrow, winding path suggested undiscovered mysteries and hidden realms, drawing them in as if guided by an unseen force. Yet, in the midst of light-hearted teasing and shared memories, each friend harbored their own secret anxieties, fears that would soon awaken and merge with the strange pulse of the forest, setting the stage for a series of unsettling events. From the moment the group stepped beneath the ancient boughs of Black Hollow, the environment exuded an almost palpable sense of foreboding. The forest seemed to whisper, with voices carried by the autumn breeze, murmuring distant secrets in a language that transcended time. Ava, troubled by memories of her sister and haunted by the guilt of a past she could neither mend nor forget, felt the weight of the forest's enigmatic presence pressing upon her spirit. The air around them was thick, with the residue of sorrow and unspoken fears, building an oppressive ambiance that would soon manifest in unforeseen ways. As dusk began to fold over the treetops, the group discovered a weathered signpost pointing to an obscure, uncharted trail that beckoned them with an almost magnetic allure. Despite the sound advice of caution that barely surfaced among their laughter, curiosity overtook reason, and they pressed forward into the unknown. The forest seemed to encourage their boldness with every rustle of the wind, every softly falling leaf, suggesting that perhaps this journey would expose something deeper than mere nature, something that resonated with the human heart in its most fragile form. The initial hours of exploration were filled with a mix of excitement and a subtle undercurrent of dread, as the fabric of reality appeared to shimmer and shift in unexpected ways. Shadows danced in the periphery of their vision, and the timeless spirit of the forest seemed to play tricks on their minds. Ava felt a chill that went beyond the crisp autumn air, a sensation as though the forest itself was alive and listening to the murmur of her thoughts. As the sun sank below the horizon, the landscape transformed into a labyrinth of twisting pathways and ambiguous silhouettes that defied conventional logic. Under a vast, star-studded sky, the once friendly chatter among the friends began to fray as anxiety crept into their voices. The forest, ancient and sentient, began to reveal its more sinister qualities, not through overt signs of violence, but via subtle disturbances that unsettled the soul. Unseen eyes seemed to follow them, and the quiet murmur of the trees took on a tone of warning. Each step on the narrow trail echoed like a heartbeat in a silent cathedral, intensifying the realization that something beyond their comprehension was orchestrating the unfolding night. As night deepened, each friend felt isolated by an unseen barrier created by the forest's ominous influence. The trail they followed twisted uncomfortably, leading them away from the familiarity of the known into a realm where reality began to blur with nightmare. Ava's mind, already heavily burdened by sorrow and regret, drifted toward memories, long suppressed memories, that the sentient forest appeared to exploit with silent precision. The whispers of the trees seemed to carry fragments of her past, intermingling her guilt with the encroaching shadows that moved with a will of their own. The unsettling ambiance intensified when an inexplicable silence befell the group, punctuated only by the soft rustling of leaves and distant echoing footfalls that could not be accounted for. In this charged atmosphere, every sound was amplified, and every rustle was interpreted as a potential threat. Tension coiled tightly around the group as they realized that the path they followed was no longer a mere physical journey, but a descent into a psychological labyrinth, a maze that forced each of them to confront their innermost fears and the burdens of their unspoken pasts. While the forest whispered its malevolent secrets, Ava's thoughts turned unbidden to her late sister, a figure whose absence had always been a painful void in her life. The haunting recollections mingled with the surreal environment, evoking a sense of dread that was both deeply personal and disturbingly universal. In fleeting moments, the outlines of a familiar figure appeared at the edges of her vision, merging the realms of memory and spectral illusion. For Eva, the forest was not merely a physical space to be traversed. It was an insidious mirror reflecting the fractured contours of her grief and guilt. The group's unity began to splinter as a series of inexplicable events heightened the pervasive sense of isolation. One after another, subtle yet disturbing occurrences began to unsettle even the most skeptical among them. The shifting of the trail, the sudden changes in the terrain, and the eerie sensation of being followed all combined to create an environment where logic ceased to exist. The friends found themselves questioning the very nature of their surroundings, wondering whether every step forward was drawing them deeper into a realm where time, memories, and reality were no longer separate entities but interwoven elements of a single, haunting tapestry. In a moment of quiet despair, Mia, the quiet one whose calm presence had often provided solace, vanished without a trace. Her absence sent ripples of shock and disbelief through the remaining group, leaving behind an echoing silence that was more terrifying than any shouted warning. The forest, with its disorienting layout and shifting boundaries, seemed to hide her within its depths, ensuring that her disappearance would not be easily understood or reversed. The unsettling void where she once stood deepened the collective unease, marking the beginning of a transformation that would forever alter the nature of their night. Nate, the rational skeptic of the group, soon faced an encounter that challenged the very foundation of his beliefs. Claiming to have witnessed the apparition of a long-departed loved one, his voice trembled as he recounted the vision of his deceased mother, a spectre that stirred emotions he had long kept buried. The experience was so vividly surreal that even his staunch disbelief faltered in the face of overwhelming emotional evidence. In that deeply disconcerting moment, Nate's rational defenses crumbled, illustrating how the forest's subtle manipulations could bring even the most unwavering minds to the brink of despair. The relentless passage of time during that harrowing night was measured not in hours, but in the mounting layers of dread that enveloped the group. The once cohesive bond among the friends, now frayed by the isolation imposed by the foreboding woodland, began to unravel as suspicion and fear took root. Accusations were whispered in hushed tones as the friends grappled with the realization that the labyrinthine forest was distorting their perceptions and dredging up painful, long-forgotten secrets. Each tortured memory and fleeting hallucination chipped away at the veneer of camaraderie, exposing vulnerabilities that had always lain hidden beneath the surface. Lucas, Eva's boyfriend, found himself gripped by an uncharacteristic intensity that bordered on hostility. With every passing moment, the tension between him and Eva escalated as unspoken resentments and buried frustrations bubbled to the surface. The oppressive environment of Black Hollow seemed to magnify every slight, every shared secret that had long festered in silence. In this crucible of despair and disorientation, Lucas's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his sense of reason dissolving under the relentless pressure of guilt and suspicion. A transformation that only deepened the night's tragic trajectory. In the midst of the turmoil, Jessa, Ava's closest friend, became a vessel for the long-hidden truth that had haunted their shared history. With a tremulous voice, she finally revealed her painful secret, that she had been near Eva's sister on the fateful day of her drowning, a moment laden with regret and unspoken responsibility. This confession, though delivered in a quiet, remorseful tone, shattered the fragile illusion of unity that had once bound the group together. The revelation resonated with the dark, ominous mood of the forest, as if every twisted branch and echoing whisper were attuned to the cadence of her sorrowful confession. As the night deepened its grip on the forest, the physical world around the friends began to dissolve into a surreal tapestry of shifting shapes and distorted realities. Every sound, every movement of the trees seemed to conspire in a silent symphony of terror that defied explanation. The forest, it appeared, was not a passive backdrop, but an active, sentient entity, weaving its dark influence into the very fabric of their existence. With every step, the boundary between illusion and reality blurred further, binding the group in a shared nightmare from which escape seemed increasingly uncertain. Ava, tormented by the relentless presence of her own guilt and the mounting revelations of the night, found herself isolated within a crucible of emotional torment. The vision of her deceased sister, a harbinger of unresolved grief and buried memories, began to appear frequently, echoing silently through the corridors of her mind. These spectral encounters were not just figments of her imagination, but reflections of the forest's twisted way of exploiting human frailty. Caught between the visceral pull of grief and the pressing need for survival, Eva's determination to confront her inner demons grew stronger with each passing torturous moment. The landscape of Black Hollow transformed as if it were a living, breathing archive of every sorrow and regret ever whispered in the wind. The path the friends once believed would lead them to an adventure now wound unpredictably through realms where memories materialized in the form of quiet, mournful apparitions. Every tree, every stone seemed inscribed with silent testimonies to forgotten anguish and sorrow. In that liminal space between reality and nightmare, the forest emerged not merely as an antagonist, but as a mirror, reflecting the countless emotional scars of those who dared to cross its threshold. Lucas, consumed by a growing desperation and emboldened by the distorted perceptions cast by the forest, began chasing elusive phantasms that he convinced were the missing friends. His pursuit through the twisting corridors of the ancient woodland was frantic and fueled by a strange blend of hope and despair. The very environment that once promised adventure now exploited his deepest fears, driving him to act impulsively and recklessly. With every desperate stride, Lucas seemed to surrender further to the forest's unseen manipulation, his sanity teetering on the edge as he navigated through a night that promised no redemption. In the chaotic aftermath of Lucas's frantic pursuit, Ava and Jessa found themselves isolated together against a backdrop of growing inner turmoil and external menace. The relentless whispers of the forest intensified around them, intermingling with their shared memories and unspoken regrets. The atmosphere was heavy, with the weight of a past that refused to be forgotten. A past that now wove itself inseparably into the present. Their whispered conversations, filled with hesitation and remorse, revealed not only the strain of the current ordeal, but also the long shadows of guilt that had haunted their friendship for years, leaving both with more questions than answers. As the hours of the night wore on with relentless persistence, the forest's influence grew more insidious, eroding the remaining vestiges of hope among the beleaguered survivors. The shifting labyrinth of paths seemed determined to confound any attempts at escape. Each turn and fork in the road deliberately orchestrated to plunge them deeper into the heart of darkness. Every step forward was burdened with the weight of a silent, malevolent force, an ancient guardian that thrived on despair. The relentless, creeping dread gnawed at their resolve, reducing even the strongest moments of courage to whispers in the enveloping gloom. The climax of the unsettling journey came as Ava and Jessa, driven by equal parts desperation and determination, stumbled upon the heart of the enigma that was Black Hollow. In a secluded clearing stood an ancient stone, its surface etched with the names of countless lost souls. A monument that bore silent testimony to the forest's inexorable hunger for sorrow and regret. With every chiseled letter and worn inscription, the stone seemed to pulse with an almost hypnotic power, drawing forth from within Ava an emotion long masked by resilience. It was a poignant symbol of the irreversible connection between personal guilt and the looming darkness that threatened to engulf them all. In that charged moment, the forest's manipulation reached its apex as the spectral presence of the hidden force. The hollow revealed itself in the ethereal silence that followed. The ancient woods, which had so subtly exploited the vulnerabilities of each soul, now demanded a reckoning with the weight of memories unburied for too long. Ava felt the crushing significance of this encounter, a moment where the truth about the forest and about herself converged with an intensity that defied simple explanation. Every fiber of her being pulsed with the resolve to face not just the external dread, but the internal turmoil that had haunted her for years. Jessa, ensnared by the magnetic pull of the forest's dark allure, was suddenly drawn into the encroaching shadows with an almost sorrowful inevitability. In one fleeting, heart-rending moment, she allowed herself to be consumed by the mysterious force that had orchestrated this night of despair. Yet, even as the abyss beckoned her, she managed to transfer a small, invaluable token of hope to Eva, a symbolic geschütz in the form of a flare gun. In that silent exchange, both women shared a poignant understanding that the only way to begin emerging from the forest's relentless grip was to confront and ultimately transcend their collective burden of guilt. With resolute determination, Ava grasped the flare gun, a tangible symbol of defiance against the unseen terrors of Black Hollow. Every instinct in her body screamed for survival, yet the call to confront her own memories was louder. The realization that the forest existed to exploit pain and sorrow crystallized in a singular moment of clarity. In the heart of that dismal clearing, Eva faced the ancient stone, and with trembling resolve, set it ablaze. The act of igniting the monument represented more than a desperate bid for escape. It symbolized the possibility of exorcising the oppressive presence that had thrived on her own internal torment. As flames began to lick at the stony surface of the memorial, the forest's oppressive silence was shattered by the infernal roar of the fire. The blaze cast dancing shadows that twisted and contorted along the gnarled trunks of ancient trees, painting the dark wilderness with surreal, flickering images of hope and despair intertwined. Eva stood transfixed as the fire's light battled the gloom, each spark a defiant challenge to the dominion of guilt and sorrow. The forest's eerie whispers momentarily faltered, as if recoiling from the revelation that even in the heart of darkness, the ember of resilience could blaze forth and illuminate a path toward redemption. In the wake of that intense, transformative moment, Eva found herself alone at the edge of Black Hollow, as the first blush of dawn touched the horizon. The forest, now bereft of its immediate malevolence, had receded into a quiet, oppressive silence that left behind the echoes of a night filled with sorrow and fractured dreams. Standing at the boundary between nightmare and reality, Ava's mind churned with conflicting emotions. A turbulent mix of loss, relief, and the painful realization that the cost of confronting one's inner demons can be measured in the scars that remain long after the horror has passed. Yet, within that maelstrom of emotion, lay a faint glimmer of hope. The solitary morning light seemed to offer a bittersweet promise of clarity and redemption. Eva, emerging from the oppressive embrace of the haunted woods, paused to reflect on the harrowing odyssey that had forever altered the contours of her soul. The whispers of the forest, now a haunting memory rather than an active terror, continued to echo in her mind as she began to piece together the shattered remnants of her past. In that fragile moment of introspection, she recognized that her journey through Black Hollow was not merely a fight for survival, but a pilgrimage toward accepting and transcending the guilt that had long defined her identity. Stepping away from the confines of the cursed woodland, Eva carried within her a heavy burden of loss and memory that would shape the contours of her future. The forest, with its silent cacophony of ancient grief, had imparted a stark truth: that our inner demons are as formidable as any external threat. The spectral images of her lost friends, including the faint yet indelible imprint of Mia and Lucas, haunted her thoughts as she navigated the uncertain path of dawn. Through each measured step away from Black Hollow, she vowed to honor their memories by embracing the hope that emerges only after the darkest nights of the soul. In the days that followed, Eva immersed herself in the slow, painful process of rebuilding the fragmented pieces of her life. The haunting events of that cursed night reverberated through her quiet moments, reminding her of the relentless power of guilt and sorrow. Yet, she found solace in the small yet significant acts of remembrance. A handwritten memorial for her sister and her lost friends, the soft murmur of morning prayers, and the steady determination to forge a future free from the suffocating grip of regret. As Eva slowly emerged from her inner turmoil, the lessons gleaned from the terrifying depths of Black Hollow continued to influence her every thought. Every time the wind rustled through the leaves or the soft whisper of the trees reached her ears, Eva was transported back to the labyrinthine nights of the ancient forest. These recollections, though painful, served as an enduring reminder that our truest battles are often fought in the recesses of our own hearts. The ambiguous line between memory and imagination blurred with every passing day. Yet she learned that acknowledging her past was vital for moving forward. With each sunrise, the haunting experiences of the night became not a source of perpetual despair, but a catalyst for a profound internal transformation that promised renewal. Ava's journey through the depths of terror and personal loss gradually evolved into a quest for inner peace. Determined to honor her friends by confronting the very source of her torment, she began to document every detail of the inexplicable events within Black Hollow. Her writings, imbued with the meticulous observation of someone who had seen both the beauty and cruelty of life, chronicled each subtle shift and every whispered regret. In these pages, the forest transformed from a malevolent force into a somber storyteller, a keeper of memories, and a quiet guardian of the sorrow that binds the living to the past. In quiet, introspective moments, Ava would revisit the clearing where the ancient stone had once stood as a monument to the lost. The charred remains of that once imposing relic now smoldered softly, a fading testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome darkness. Every lingering ember seemed to echo her own determination to transcend the ghostly confines of her guilt. And in the gentle, unwavering glow, she discovered an unexpected strength. The forest's indelible impression had taught her that healing often emerges from the ashes of deep despair, guiding her forward on a path of redemption. Haunted by the memory of the night and the silent voices of those who had vanished, Eva gradually embraced the notion that survival was not measured solely by physical escape, but by the courage to confront one's innermost traumas. The slow, inexorable progression of time allowed her to sift through the layers of pain, separating the fleeting echoes of fear from the enduring hope of tomorrow. The details of that foreboding night remained etched in her mind, serving as both a cautionary tale and a poignant reminder of the delicate interplay between guilt, memory, and the human need for closure. As Ava's personal healing journey unfolded, she found that every painful recollection offered a chance for renewal. The memories of Black Hollow, once synonymous with terror and despair, began to morph into a testament of resilience. A series of lessons learned in the dark crucible of night, she channeled the sorrow and remorse into a quiet strength, transforming the fragmented echoes of her past into a resolve that would guide her toward a future of mindful acceptance. The enduring whispers of the forest, though no longer an omnipresent terror, continued to impart wisdom in the silence of each reflective moment. At the heart of her unfolding narrative was the unequivocal realization that the true horror of Black Hollow was not a tangible creature lurking within the undergrowth, but rather the unyielding grip of suppressed emotions and unresolved grief. This intimate confrontation with the darker parts of her psyche revealed that every whisper, every distorted memory conjured by the sentient woods was a mirror reflecting the deepest recesses of the human soul. With each recollection, Eva found herself not only facing the chilling mysteries of the past, but also reclaiming her own power, transforming sorrow into the courage needed to redefine her future. Driven by the painful necessity of acceptance, Ava's memories of that sinister night gradually coalesced into an opus of resilience, a detailed account of how even the most oppressive darkness can be challenged by the relentless light of the human spirit. Through her carefully crafted writings, she recounted the slow, almost imperceptible metamorphosis from despair into determination. Each word and every recollection served as a profound exorcism of the ghosts that had long haunted the edges of her consciousness. In sharing her story with others, Ava hoped to ignite a spark of understanding and hope among those who, too, had once been shrouded in their own darkness. In the solitude of her later years, Eva would often gaze upon the horizon where dawn broke with quiet majesty, a reminder that the cycle of night and day paralleled the eternal struggle between sorrow and renewal. The memories of Black Hollow had left an indelible mark upon her soul, interweaving the strands of loss with those of an unexpected resurgence of hope. Through it all, the haunting whispers of the forest lingered as both a caution and a benediction, a call to keep moving forward, to confront one's darkest reflections with a courageous heart, and to ultimately emerge transformed by the journey through life's shadowed corridors. In her continued quest for meaning and healing, Eva built a humble memorial dedicated to her sister and the friends lost to the relentless shadows of that fatal night. The modest structure, assembled with tender care and painstaking detail, was both a tribute and an altar to the memories that refused to fade. Every inscription on its weathered surface resonated with the echo of sorrow and the promise of redemption. Through this personal act of remembrance, Ava affirmed that the true legacy of those absent souls was not one of despair, but a call to live with purpose and courage in the face of overwhelming loss. As the final chapter of her journey drew to a quiet close, Ava stood before her memorial beneath a vast, awakening sky, speaking softly into the silence as if to set the weight of her past adrift on the morning breeze. In that profound moment of solitude, she declared that the forest had sought not to claim her body, but to bind her spirit with the chains of pain and regret, a mission it could never ultimately accomplish. With a steady, resolute voice, Eva affirmed, "The whispers of the trees, once tangled with our sorrows, yet now my soul is free to sing in the light of a new dawn." The lingering echoes of Black Hollow faded into memory, leaving behind the enduring promise of personal liberation and the hope of a future unburdened by the ghosts of yesterday.